Welcome back to Lead Score Monday. This is episode 2 of the Value First Scoring Build, where Chris and I are building our own score from scratch live. Quick note, Rylee is out sick today, so it's just the two of us, which honestly might mean we move faster because last week Rylee was pressure testing every assumption in real time. So Chris, we've got no one stopping us from making bad decisions today.
I know. It's so freeing.
Last week, we spent the full hour aligning on what this score is actually for. We debated use cases, Chris dragged us back to reality a few times, and we landed in a real clear place. Start with company fit, start with the data we already have, and stop theorizing about data we don't. So today, we're opening HubSpot, we're building the company fit score, real properties, real weights, real thresholds. We have about 18 active clients for the portal we're working on and roughly 3,000 contacts in our database. Not a massive data set, which is actually the point. You don't need thousands or hundreds of thousands of records to start scoring. If you're watching this and you've got questions, drop them in the comments. We're building live. So if something doesn't make sense or if you've done it differently, we want to hear from you. Let's get into it. Chris, you have famously not built a ton of scores.
Any scores?
You built one.
Oh, yeah. Once on this episode, or on this series before.
Yeah, you built your 9,000 score.
I remember that.
So outside of that, you haven't built any scores. Do you have any assumptions going in on where we should start based on what you know about the data set or what you know about scoring?
I think based on last week's conversation, we've got some data related to company fit that we could probably start to look at. Definitely have more. The ICP has been team focused. I guess some would refer to that as horizontal in terms of, business leaders, operations teams, customer teams, and product teams.
Mm-hmm.
So there we're probably looking at job title. But really have no idea how complete the data set is at this point.
All right. So a lot of places to go. If you don't know, the lead scoring tool is called the lead scoring tool, Chris, is under the marketing menu and lead scoring here. So that's where I am. I'm going to go ahead and start by creating a score. For this score, we're going to start with a company fit score, which means I'm going to start in the companies tab here. For right now, and I might regret this because you can't really turn back from it, I'm going to leave this as a combined score, but that's mostly so that I can play around with how we want to look at the company fit by giving me access to like all the filters. We may just use property-based filters, which would be a company fit score. But this, for demo purposes, is going to help me kind of play around.
I like it.
And also, transparently, like when we look at company fit, sometimes, and this is going to probably sound confusing coming out of my mouth, and I'm open to being wrong about this. Sometimes I look at engagement on whether a company is a good fit. So like has anyone from the company shown engagement? Although that technically is company engagement, I almost look at that as like if the company is a fit. Does that make
Yeah.
I know I said like contradicting words there.
No, I think it's like a lot of most clients I've worked with, you're lucky if they have ICP documented at all, right? So, and in the past, I think everybody can get hung up with like this 3-month process of documenting ICPs or buyer personas. And there's data in here, specifically engagement data, that can help you understand that. So, and just set the tone of looking at the data to help with decision making, like in the business overall. Like there's data sitting in here, and like if you went and asked AI or your number one salesperson, like which companies are the best fit, right? Based on the data or based on the context of the salesperson who just crushes it because he can carry every conversation to the finish line. It really doesn't matter he's talking to or when. Like you're going to get very different answers there, and neither of them will be telling like the whole story. Right? So having some kind of baseline, no matter how complete the data is over here, that can make it a little more objective, I think can go a long way.
Yeah. So to that point, a lot of times when we're building scores, we start with a series of interviews with stakeholders. So that tends to be people on the marketing team, people on the sales team, people on service teams, but also executives and anyone kind of involved in the process. However, to your point, that's not always sometimes people are wrong. And sometimes, especially if the data is not documented, people are just making guesses based on what they've heard or as they understand things.
Everybody has their own context. And if you have, like, if you're going to talk to humans, then you need to talk to all of them to make sure you're not over biasing. But I think that's, again, gets us back to like thinking of this as a relationship score or a health score, because often the easiest people to sell to that will pay the most money, you start talking to the service teams and they're going to tell you how bad they are as a customer and how much margin might be lost and how they're not a good fit. And sometimes they were a good fit last year and now we've changed the product and they're not a good fit this year. That's like, you have to bring in the other teams to fully understand that. And usually what we see here and why we need to find a way to get leaders involved is like leaders in the executive conference room will paint a very different picture than what's happening like on the ground. And like, because they're up here at a strategic perspective, knowing that we should not be targeting a certain group of companies because it's not profitable. They're looking at the bottom line. But then on the ground, if I need a bunch of leads or I need a bunch of closed deals, I'm going to target those companies. And oftentimes there's not a match there.
Yeah. So, I mean, based on what you just said, I just put in number of associated opportunities, number of associated deals, depending on how it's named in your system, as greater than or equal to 1. I think one thing a lot of people do when they create a company fit score is they exclude companies that have previous deals, companies that have previously closed won or closed lost deals either. And Chris, you're shaking your head for what I think is the right reason. Like those are often your best opportunities. So filtering those people out is really taking away some of your best.
It's the only insight you actually have. Right. And we came back to it last week. Like, this is why I get mad at SaaS in general. Like the way that companies are just not good at leveraging the data they already have. Like this is such an easy example to where I was not aware that companies often did that. As soon as you mention it, I understand why, because they're focused on net new and all this other data that's coming in from the Zoom infos of the world and all these other places, like wishful thinking data, basically. And they want to parse through all that and like separate it from data that they actually have in the system based on, things that have actually happened.
Yeah, and it's funny actually because a project that Rylee and I are working on right now, he's been mapping some things out, and he had created like a health score for net new opportunities and a health score for existing customers for upsell opportunities. And he was presenting this, and he was kind of focused on the net new. He was excited about the like ability to score for upsells, but he was focused on the net new, and I know why, because he was used to people being focused on the net new, and then at some point the client was like, we care less about net new and more actually about upselling. And he was like, oh, well, then he was like, forget this, then I really just did this because I was trying.
It definitely speaks to how hard this process is when we're trying to create value with a methodology in value for scoring, which is trying to solve for things like lead scoring has just traditionally been a very bad skill inside of organizations. You've already shared a good example of why that is. Often that boundary could be from sales being like, no, we got it, marketing. Like, you go do all this other stuff. It's like, this is our data. Like, you don't get to see who has an opportunity or not, and we'll let you know whether what you're sending us is good or not. And then like the cycle of leaders thinking that's how you're supposed to do like lead scoring, because that's been the like what you hear about from companies like HubSpot, because they are trying to support more insight further up the funnel at the beginning of the journey. But yeah, it's got to come from the data you already have. And traditionally, HubSpot doesn't necessarily have access to that data when it is just marketing. So it's just another example of, why we got to bring everything together. And I love the fact, like, when you can start with interviews of everybody in the customer facing org, no matter what team they are, you start to break down like silos and create alignment, very quickly.
Yeah. All right. So what I like to do when I'm building scores is I like to start adding the elements in without worrying too much about like how many points we're gonna allocate where. Because at the end of the day, if I don't know what all the elements are, it's hard for me to start like ranking them. And I also like to keep my fit scores. In a perfect world, my fit scores, my company fit, my contact fit are each 10 points. That doesn't always work out. But if I'm using that as like my baseline, it's helpful to know how many kind of scores, how many points I have based on how many criteria. In a perfect world, I'm like saying there are 10 pieces of possible company fit, and each one of those gets a point. That's my ideal state, but that doesn't always happen. So we added in number of associated opportunities is greater than equal to 1. Another thing I like to do is number of associated contacts. Chris recently renamed that object to friends, which is totally fine and not going to mess me up in lives for the rest of the time. This one, do you have any inklings here? I will validate the data. I do have a plan to validate the data, to be clear, Chris.
like whether or not there is a lot of accurate association data, or whether there is a significant difference across the database, 1, 2, 3, 4 associated.
Looking at what criteria, like I'm starting with what criteria we think should be incorporated, and then we can take a look at what Breeze thinks is really.
Yeah. So this would be 1 greater than or equal to 1 as well.
I think more than 1, because like I feel like greater than or equal to 2.
Sold.
Personally, at least. But again, we don't need to like do that. Another common one, at least, is country. I also brought up the company list, the property list here.
Account.
These are called account. Yeah, thank you. And I do want to do, you can't sort by fill rate. That is not what I thought. But used in, I sometimes do, so I can see account name. That's not super helpful. Is filled out a lot. Another thing is like the ideal customer profile tier, but only 3% have that. Like there's fairly low fill rates on some of this stuff. So I'm starting to kind of look at what have more significant fill rates to see what we can have. But what I mean is country and region generally has a relatively high fill rate because it's one of HubSpot's enrichments. So a lot of times we incorporate that, especially if we know we don't have a ton of other filled data. So we are trying to kind of narrow things.
Yes.
Do you know, Chris, are all 18 customers based in the United States, or are they international?
They are not.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah. So I'm interested where you're going to go with this. What is select and what are our options here?
Is equal to any of, and then you have to type, because this is a single line text field, which I don't love, but but that's how HubSpot enriches it, so it's difficult.
Yeah. All right. So United.
I'm just saying language would have been nicer.
I wonder what the fill rate is on language.
I didn't even see it as a option of property, so 0.
So 87 points if you're from the US.
No,
right?
1. We're doing out of 10.
Okay.
So country is usually 1. However, worth noting, and this I think is an important element when you're building any score, is, Chris, not all 18 customers are the United States. However, if 95% of the customers are the United States, that still makes the United States the most fit of the best fit out of all the country options. So,
which is almost a perfect percentage that you just pulled out. I think 1 out of the 18 companies is not from the US. So.
And I think that's something a lot of teams get wrong when they look at scores in general, is people get really so focused on like, what if someone slips through the cracks, that I feel like they often lose the whole point of scoring, which is to see who is the most likely to be a good fit. That doesn't mean that someone that is a bad fit will never become a customer. We're just saying these are the people most likely to be a good fit.
Yeah.
All right. So these are kind of some of the most common properties I use. Any other properties that you have any feelings about?
Time zone? Does anybody use time zone ever?
That is a good option, and it's filled 30% is not great. Anything under 50% is generally not great, but when we're starting, I'm okay with working with what we have. I personally do a lot of work in SAS, so time zone is less needed, but you are correct that like for us, where we are doing this based on consulting, time zone is going to be more relevant.
Yep.
I'm sure I've told you this story before, Chris, but when I started consulting, I had a client in like Australia or something, and I was like, I can do this. Kind of a night owl, and I very quickly could not.
Yeah.
Here's one thing.
Is this where we could do like negative or like take them out as well?
We could. I'm just trying to figure out what the values are for time zone. So if it is like this, same as country region, and you're not sure exactly what the like phrasing is, I'll do this.
Yeah. This is where like, I think we have built-in options now for selecting like the whole list of time zones and the whole list of countries. You just have to create new properties that aren't going to be enriched, I guess. And even here, like this process, like there's insight already, like staring us in the face that we probably didn't have. And it's from the activity of building out the score, right? Like as you think about different, like I think to your point, so often it's coming from the direction of an asset or something we really want to be true. Meanwhile, there's so many variables available to us that can just start grouping the data in certain ways. That, because then, yeah, exactly like you did here, right?
Yeah, I was just curious, obviously, like if there's overlap. Like I'm even wondering for us, we could give a positive score for time zone contains America. But I was wondering, does that nullify the need for the United States score? But it does not, because there are a lot of people whose time zone is unknown, but country is known.
And so is this an example of like, instead of scrambling and or paying a lot of money to make sure time zone is perfect, this allows for it not to be perfect? Especially as you start running into these fill rates. And I think that's what we're trying to do, is get out of the habit of building scores in a vacuum and understand the context of everything put together on a unified view. Then all of a sudden you put everybody in a position to understand the data better, probably pitch in to data cleanup and not rely on all of these enrichment and paid data activities. That's like so much of the conversations get overburdened with that expectation.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't get anywhere because it runs into budget. Oh, how much is that going to cost? How long is that going to take? We got to set that up. Right. Meanwhile, again, with two variables, you created a much more clarity than we had 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, we did.
It's like you've done this before.
It's like I've done this before. You were like, yeah, exactly what I was thinking. All right. So I added positive for America. I added negative. I'm open to adjusting this, but for Pacific and Asia, not because I have any issue other than I am not equipped to stay up late enough to consult with people who are 12 hours different than but Chris probably would. Chris doesn't sleep, if you didn't know that.
Depends.
So these are some properties. I still wanted to take a look at event groups. We did talk about that at the beginning. And I think this is worth considering, especially intent signals, which are in the, they're not properties. They're going to be your event criteria. So there's a lot of event criteria you can look at for companies specifically. If I'm looking at our organization, I would think, well, visitor intent is going to have us select from less than 30 days ago. This is based on entered. Okay, yeah, that's fine. The intent, buyer intent signals in HubSpot, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So that one's fine. So if they have entered visitor intent in the last 30 days, that feels fine. But then there's also a number of other events. So VC funding, industry recognition, product launches, and so on. Leadership content is, we looked at this one time. This one's kind of interesting. You could look at the topics.
Oh, wow.
Ooh. This is
AI first.
This is crazy. So how I'm reading this is if Dharmesh posts about AI, as Dharmesh posts about AI, he would, if we said leader, then HubSpot would be in this. Right?
Yep. At this point, I'm wondering if there's a specified list of topics that we need to choose from.
Let me get out of here. You told me to stream with care, so I will do my best as I try to navigate what that might look like. Signals.
Yeah, this is the stuff people are missing out on while they're focused on filling in time zone. Right?
Yes.
And Clemens talked about this a lot in terms of embracing the fact that your data is never going to be 100% clean and complete. And if you're focused on it always being correct, this is where like super users of CRM like often focus on making sure the data is filled in, like everything on the page. And they never make time to talk about, things like this.
Yeah. I don't see any of the companies we're tracking having content as a signal, so I'm not sure what the list is.
Yeah.
But Tesla is researching lead scoring allegedly.
Yeah, I think everybody on this list is. So I've only made one list.
So that is, well, let me see though. Yeah, because your research topic is lead scoring, but I don't know if. Yeah, I'm not sure what the topics would look like.
Yeah.
But we can see people who have entered our visitor intent.
But that, just imagine this, man, we should go through like all these intent signals and like, if that's like there's a list related to leadership content.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be, I mean, I wonder what lists exist related to the other intent signals.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I think we could almost certainly do, and maybe maybe this is what we do next week, is start taking a look at these intent signals. There's so many of them now, and like it's hard for me now that I'm poking through them to imagine like not including most of them really into any company fit score, because at the end of the day, like have there been major changes at this company? If yes, then they're probably more likely to be open to change right now.
Yeah.
That's
And as I mentioned, like if our targets are business leaders or customer teams or like that executive hiring, we had the option to say job title
mm-hmm.
in there. And like, this is where, even though it's not data you know, it's data that somebody else knows, in this case, HubSpot, that matters, that is relevant to you. Like, instead of coming at it from the perspective of, oh, we got all this data from this third-party vendor, how do we start parsing it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, all you have is demographics. So you start building these lists around job titles and things where you're like hopeful that you want to talk to these people.
Mm-hmm.
When you start it from this place and this set of companies that have already been like tracking on intent, like it's intent, like it's in the name,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you're trying to work from some place of understanding. And there's so much data coming in here. And like, as you start to build this out, even if it's not perfect, the team, so I've heard, is working on custom signals.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the more you learn from here, the more you'll be ready to do custom signals. Right. And again, we come back to like, are you going to be able to pick data that matters inside of your CRM, whether it's filled or not? If you've gone through any level of this activity, you will be closer to where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that people don't go through this because they think they got to get to like a 100% accurate score?
I do. I think people, and I mean, we did a whole session a couple weeks ago on like why your first score will not be a perfect score. But I do think the idea of perfection gets in the way of launching anything. And then also, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, I think the other problem that people get into is they believe that they're too scared of people falling through the cracks. Like, what if there is an organization in Australia that is a great fit and Chris is willing to take it, and now we took them out of our scores?
Right. Yep. So what does that force Chris to do? Go into the crack where everybody is, because we have nothing else. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
no scores. There's
Mm-hmm.
no insights.
Mm-hmm.
And if you force it, it's like a guaranteed way to, man, this is really a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like forced completeness with data you don't have. You will certainly have people like possibly valuable opportunities in the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
so I feel like we've put together a lot of pieces of what could be a strong starting fit score based on our own like understanding and knowledge. And to be honest, like also worth definitely transparently saying, like a lot of this is super broad. And I think that's okay. Like it doesn't have, we didn't add industry. Industry is a really common one. We didn't add that. I think that's less important for us than it is for many people. If industry is a gatekeeper for you, then industry 1000% should be in here. Company size, revenue, things like that are commonly in these scores and commonly part of enrichment tools. We didn't include those.
Speaking of another cycle, like, oh, we got to have employees and revenue.
Web technologies. This is a list. I'm pretty sure, is this custom or
no?
This is out of the box.
Yeah, type in.
Yeah. I mean, that definitely would be a good inclusion for us. May or may not be as relevant for you. But I think it's important to just kind of start with the things you know. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's do my 9 and 10 just to get me.
Product launch is a good indicator. It could be a good indicator of somebody wanting to do better, go to market, activity.
And then geographic expansion versus physical expansion. Physical expansion would be like our office got bigger, and geographical location expansion would be like now we're selling in Europe. Is that?
That sounds right.
I don't know even
metrics.
What?
Let's go with growth metrics.
Growth metrics. I didn't know. I didn't know what that one meant.
It means they've shared something about growth goals or past quarter growth metrics. So, like, are they in good shape as a company? Did they meet their quarterly earnings? Great. Things like that. Are they growing?
Cool. I also like this. So we have 10 now. I like that there's 5 in the intent signals and 5 in the like property signals. So that's kind of nice. We can preview distribution. I have no idea how this is going to shake out. That doesn't super surprise me. Where are they though? Everyone's in C3. Oh, everyone's. Oh, well, I messed up. That's my bad, everyone. Fix your thresholds, because if you're only doing
10
as your max, then everyone is going to be terrible.
There's the big reveal. There we go. Look at that. 178. Bang.
There we go. So 178 tells me something. Like it tells me, all right, these are 178 companies that would be worth kind of considering.
That will help give us insight to take further steps.
Yeah.
All right.
Turn it on.
Turn it on.
The other thing I just wanted to flag is I did send Breeze a prompt asking, kind of using the data in HubSpot, what would it recommend? It did send me back a long thing about like it's not able to look at the engagement pattern. So that was interesting.
So say, just take a swag.
Take a swag?
Take a swag at it.
Swig? Isn't it swig?
No, it's
Swing?
super wild ass guess.
Oh.
At it.
Well, I thought I should give it a company fit score at least.
Okay.
I asked it a little more broadly in the request, just like to analyze trends. So I feel like
See? Bam. Like
I did know.
he moves from quantitative, which is probably not good because the data is not great, to qualitative.
Customer contacts, B2B, CEOs, founders, directors of marketing, head of operations. Sometimes in lead scoring, I'll say, like, do we have specific job titles at that company? So, like, let's say we like only sell deals if we have the director of marketing on board. I might use that in the company fit score as well to say, like, do we even know the director of marketing?
Is there a contact associated with director of marketing as the title?
Exactly. So it does include industries. That's not surprising.
Evidence / intuition. I mean, that's what we need in these moments. That's why you talk to the humans. If you don't have great data, you've got to start from data in people's heads.
Company size, it said. It's interesting, like some of the stuff we like actually intentionally didn't include. It's
right. That's the, like, been on the record many times saying all of the things we're fighting against from a value first scoring perspective are built into the training data of AI, especially HubSpot's customer data set, which is largely what has trained Breeze. So you will get the usual stuff, but as soon as you push back one time, like it can point you in a better direction, or let's say a more relevant direction for your company. But just because it says number of employees are important doesn't necessarily make it so.
And part of that is like the partial data that we're kind of working with as well. So number of employees gets filled out dynamically by HubSpot through enrichment. So if we don't have a lot of data points, some of those automatically enriched data points become a heavier component in the scores.
Yeah. But I already like the direction of this conversation. Like once you get to qualitative, you'll get to a point where you can ask Breeze, like, okay, these are the 5 that we should care about. What are some tips for like getting more of that data? Right. And things like social posting and turning on intent signals and all of this other stuff you're probably not used to doing in HubSpot can all of a sudden be suggested in the context of what we're trying to accomplish. When often marketing will come out of nowhere and say, all right, let's post on LinkedIn. That's going to solve like all these issues. And it doesn't get connected to this goal because there is no goal outside of let's make our data better. Right. And so without a ton of effort here, you can start to use AI effectively to help. Just need some guardrails.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have a company fit score live. We do not have a contact fit score, but hopefully next week we can start building that out with Rylee, and then kind of look at our engagement scoring, and then probably circle back to how is this all looking, because that's the point. Get something and then adjust from there.
Yes.
Thank you for showing up. Chris and I are available for office hours Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Central. And we will see you next Monday for another lead scoring. Value first scoring. That's what I meant.